Buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares and sends my way. From the heart, gracias. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the video to help the message get out a little further to see if it can reach the correct ears. Gracias. Well, everyone, today I'm going to touch on a homie, Monstro, from Fresno Playboys gang. And basically, it's going to circle around on how he didn't get the program. And instead of making a homie, it was easier to break a homie in so many words, right? But first, I want to take you back to Ironwood. You know, when we first got to Ironwood, we're going from the hole. We were going from Vacaville's hole. We got there, they put us in the hole first to see committee before they put us on the linea. So, I met the camarada there in the hole. Eventually, we would all make it out to the linea, right? To a yard. And when we hit the yard, you tend to bond with people you arrive from certain incidents. And we met in the hole. He was a new arrival too. So, just to put a little backstory on the homie. The homie came to the States when he was older, I believe 17, 16, 17. He was already up there, right? And I want to make it clear, I'm not saying this to throw shade in no way, shape, or form. With the homie, I always say it, a camarada's a camarada, it don't matter, where you're from. But just for the sense of the story, right? Anyways, when he got there, it's normal, he went where he clicked in the best. In this case, was with the homies, right? From Playboys out there in Fresno. And he would eventually get jumped in or join the neighborhood, right? And needless to say, some bulldogs, they would end up catching him, slipping one time, and he had some mean scars on his face and head due to this incident. So you could say he had a grudge, a hate, you know, for bulldogs, which at the time we were uh, we were allowed to program together. Not gonna say we were together because we were never together. We were just allowed to program as one, right? Till the bulldogs say ya estuvo and the señores. But anyways, when we hit the line, I mentioned it before. There was a few bulldogs, right? Max, Dopey. There was about four, five bulldogs, and the homie right away wanted to cause issues with them, you know. And me personally, I took him on a walk a couple times, right? Try to explain. He didn't have what we had, you know. Even we tend to learn. For example, me was juvenile hall, YA, just coming down south. You tend to learn the guidelines, right? I know it's different in the inside and then the outside. He didn't have that. To him it was enemigos are enemigos. But that's not how person works. And the proof is in the pudding, right? Just amongst camaradas, you could be a block away from another camarada and you're literally gunning each other down to take each other's life. But inside, that all ends. That all stays in the door. You're a sureño or you run with the sur. That's all that counts. Sur 13, Campo, that's it. You know, other than that, you can't set trip. You can't do none of that, right? So, anyways, I try to put it in so many words from different angles to him, right? One, he had the speech barrier, to not coexist with a lot of camaradas, in Ironwood. There was a lot of homies that, to be sincere, they were just keeping their nose in the air, waiting to earn something in the form of, oh, I'll go ahead and boogie on him. If someone needed to get whacked, I'll do it. Just to earn some points. Well, that's what they thought, right? But the homie kept having problems, mainly with Dopey, right? Because they were in the same block, one block to be exact, and it kept coming out to the yard, right? That the homie basically was set tripping where there was no set tripping, and I explained to him that that we were basically working together. We were allies. They're allowed to walk, and the rules and regulations they come from above. And I don't know if he had been in the system in Mexico, right? But since he knew I had the yard, he basically tried to say you can't finesse it, dude. I told him no. I'm not gonna go against because it would eventually hit Apili's ears, and it wouldn't be one of our career, it'd be both of us. Unless it comes from them, then they're allowed. And this is no way, shape, or form to minimize the Raza Bulldog, right? I met some good individuals that were bulldogs, and my utmost respect was for them, right? Prison is what prison is. And anyways, he wouldn't learn. He wouldn't learn, and he got south-sided a couple times due to his actions. And I didn't want to take it there because I knew it was a homie that basically didn't understand. You know, and I know a lot of people's gonna think like, well, it shouldn't take long for him to understand, but the head is one's worst enemy. Having hate is the worst thing too. Your head starts messing with you, especially if you're around the streets and you were doing acid and all that stuff. Your head's gonna wanna get you. That's the most sincere thing I could say. Because I never use, and I tell you, my head got me a bunch of times. But nevertheless, I was always out to help a camarada, not hurt one. And I felt he was a good a soldier, right? Because we had a riot with the Gabachos, then we had a riot with the brothers, and a mission, because he kept messing up. He went on a mission, and he had him on him. He just, again, couldn't let go of it. Needless to say, the time came where that Amapil came down from the bay, and it was the bulldog raza and us couldn't walk the same yard no more. It was boogie time. So things unfolded the way they did, you know, and well, I'm just gonna say It's one of the times I was a real scandalous individual, right? Because there was a bulldog that he circled around on Santa Rosa a lot, so we had a lot of conversations, right? And we were real cool, you know. But again, prison is prison, right? When my peel hit my hands to spread it out, he was literally next door to me, and you know, things had to unfold the way they did, and I went and did that, and you know, the homie was the first one to raise his hand to, you know, do his thing, which he did, not on Dopey, though, on Max, and the rest would end up getting pulled out the yard, right, by the COs. Well, in time, you know, he settled down a lot more because there were no norteños, there were no bulldogs. It was just Raza, brothers, Woods, others, and it was just peace, right? So I kept trying to tell him because I skipped over the part where there was a time where he kept it up, and before everything hit the fan, he uh he got hit, he got whacked, you know, a couple times in the lower area, not to hurt him, just to check him, right? And we left it at that. You know, things kept on falling the way they did, and I would eventually go to the hole for Weddle, and you know, that was the last I thought I was seeing the homie, right? But again, it's a small world. About a year and a half later, something happened in Ironwood amongst Tramflas. And I guess the homie from Playboys Fresno, he got real close with the homies from Westside Playboys. At the end of the day, it's the same barrio, right? Just different area codes. But he got involved with that, you know, and it was a no-no. He went through the hole. He got checked in the hole, and he would eventually hit Tehachapi, where Toro was at. And you know, once he showed his paperwork, he it states, you know, your lockup order, your 128G states how long you were on the yard, all that. And we were band neighbors, me and Toro. So he asked me like, "Hey, Chino, you heard of this vato?" And I told him, "Yeah." So why could you tell me about this? Because we can't have camaradas on camaradas, you know, especially when there's so many people watching. This is an automatic, you know, but he had already gotten checked in the hole in Ironwood. And, you know, I wasn't going to lie to Toro, excuse me. So I told him, look, you know, the homie has the heart. He's a good individual when you talk to him to analyze how the Sureño wiggles should be. He just has a different mindset because he joined late and it's different politics. I guess he was from a neighborhood in Mexico, you know, from where he was from, and it's way different, you know. It's day and night, you know, day and night, excuse me. Just how different things are, right? There's no organized nothing in Mexico, to be sincere. And told me what was happening with them, and I told him, look, he answered up for everything, but this was going on when it was said by you guys that they were allowed to walk amongst us, and you know, I tried to explain him. He got south-sided a couple times. He got sent on a mission. He got checked, until it just happened to come down the pipeline that we couldn't walk amongst each other no more, you know? And that was pretty much it. For the next 8, 9 months I was there, he was programming pretty firmes. I don't know what happened, but Ironwood is real famous for ground flat tripping, right? And he said, all right, I would, I'm gonna ask. He said he was gonna ask, or leave it in the hands of the Billy from Fresno, Fonsi, just to give him that respect because they rang too much camaradas and have him decide. And I told him, you know, my palabra might not count as much to you, but I sincerely think the homie just needs guidance. He says, yeah, yeah, let me speak to my brother. And that was that. And then I didn't get told nothing else. All I heard is his celly whacking him and removing him out the section. And that was that. Next thing I know, Toro was on the vent, right? Chino, Chino. And I said him, muy buenas tardes. And he told me, you seen that? Yeah, I seen it. And he's all, my brother said since he was set tripping and he didn't want to listen, that was a wrap. And then, at the end, he ran flat trip. That's another reason to take him out. That he believed like me, that there's always an angle to correct the homie without having to take his career. But in this case, Fresno's Fonsi's, and he decides, which is nonsense, right? Because the minute Toro told him about the Bulldogs, right? Fonsi's sons are Bulldogs. And then some of his family are Norteños. So, of course, Fonsi's gonna, you know, dispatch the homie, especially because he wasn't there to see the homie, and it wouldn't matter. At the end of the day, there's very few big homies that would actually take the time to guide a camarada, to give him clecha. You know, there is some, don't mistake my words, but most of them is like, okay. And I spoke to Creeper, the senor, about this, and it's like, Toro was out, and he told me, the minute they direct this to Fonzie, Fonzie thought about, his kids, his nephews, all that, and this Bato having a release date, and he don't want to say he favors that over that, at least in that city of Fresno, right? And I just listen and quiet, and I say whatever needs to get done is you guys' decision. And that was it. Basically, Monster, you know, got whacked and removed for having hate in his heart. So this is just an cautionary tale, an inside look on how when you go into the system, all that hate, all that barrio tripping, all that, oh, I'm from here, this is my area, that's nonsense. It's going to ricochet against you. It might not on the spot, but it's going to follow you, you know. So for those that haven't been to prison, you know, don't listen to those. You got to go earn yours. But this isn't look on how, you're on the streets, wiggling, pushing for your neighborhood against something. And most of the camaradas, or a lot more of the camaradas, they're from Southern California, right? And their enemies are homies. And that all has to be left at the gate. There's no buts or ifs. You act against somebody. Let's just say you know somebody that killed your primo, your brother. Most of the time, you're gonna request for a personal issue. You're gonna be shut down. Because at the end of the day, you can't slow the program down. You cannot stop the candy to come into the yard. That makes feria for them. So, be prepared for that. But I know there is a lot of people that think, that's nonsense. Yeah, I tell you because I felt the same thing, when they told me, like, hey, everything's at peace here with the norteño raza. And there was a point where I was like, nah, but how? And you have to bite your tongue. So, again, this is just an inlook of the things you have to do. And then at the end of the day, remember, we're following the program of individuals that a lot of them, they have this type of mentality that they're going to use against you without even knowing you. I really think that there is no hierarchy in the M, because that way they stay as individuals pushing their agendas on camaradas, politic on other beliefs, and it's always going to be to benefit. Remember, Fonsi has, and it's a known fact, Fonsi through his family has active bulldogs doing things for him. Norteños, sureños, but more so down south sureños in Fresno, mostly bulldogs and norteños. So of course he's gonna go with what benefits him. I understand Toro's in look and why he left it in his hand. Toro was from down south. He wanna call it right, but that's how prison is. So just a word of advice, I know those that don't know me probably say, from who? From you? You know, I was that individual double life in prison. It took 23 years, 11 months under a technicality to be overturned. 14 in the shoe. It is why I give you this inlook, because this story might be a little quack, you could say, but it just goes to show that Atecato's agenda would always be more powerful than a camarada. No matter how much heart you have for the cause. So value you, your homeboys, those that are friends and loyal to you. Most importantly, stay true to yourself and loyal to loved ones. Buenas noches.